Welcome back to Look News for a Friday. Barry Potoker joining us again, our weekly
David.
segment. Welcome back to Look News, sir. Second week of the track season.
Yes,
I
second
guess.
week, first week over.
First week
Tough
over.
meet for everyone.
Yep. Do you win big yet?
No, you got to lay low. You got to lay low the first week and get, let things start to take shape, and then you jump in.
You know, one of the things you're going to be talking about with us over the coming weeks is taking a dip back into the track and the history, and of course you grew up here in the Spa City. And we want to talk a little bit today about betting and handicapping and the way it used to be, right?
Well, back in the 70s,
Okay.
when I was just a teenager, of course, betting was totally different than it is today. First of all, there were no exotic bets. It was win, place, and show. That was it. And there was one daily double, first and second race. So you had to make it up to the track to make the double. They did eventually add exactas probably in the late 70s, but just in the third race, fifth and seventh. So back in the day, all the bets were $2.
Okay.
There were no $1 bets, 10-cent supers and all that kind of stuff.
So there's a race. I'm going up to the window there. I got my bet, $2, right?
It has to be $2.
Win,
nothing
place,
less.
or show.
Win, place, or show.
And that's all you could select.
Well, you could obviously bet $10, $5, whatever,
Okay.
but the minimum bet was $2. So as a teenager, you didn't have much money.
Yeah.
So you really had to handicap hard to make sure of your bets.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because obviously the payouts are going to be much different. Nowadays you've got these exotic bets where you can get such a windfall, but with this bet you really had to know what you were
You did, because you
talking
didn't
about.
have, like you said, you didn't have these $1,000 supers and all this kind of stuff that you would be hitting. But back in the day then, what we would do, see, we didn't have time to handicap days before like you do now,
Okay.
because you didn't know who was running. You only knew who was running the night before, and you had to wait for the racing form, which in those days was called the telly. You had to wait for it. It came around 11 or 12 o'clock at night
Okay.
for the horses that were going to be racing the next day. So we'd be waiting at a place called Richie's Deli on Lake Avenue here in Saratoga, waiting for...
Where was Richie's? Just
Richie's Deli, right? It was actually used to be next to Kay's, if you remember. Kay's was... It's near where the junior high school was, or where the school is.
Yep.
And we'd be sitting around talking about the day's races, just waiting for the truck to get there. And usually it was late. So here you got the racing form, in those days called the telly. You get it around midnight. You'd have to go home, and now you start to study and handicap for the next day.
What time was the first race of the day?
First race
back
was
then?
2 o'clock.
Okay. So you just got a little time to sleep a little later after waiting up all night. Who was printing the telly back in those days? I know now we've got a bunch of options.
Well, it was still the daily racing form. They just changed the name years later, but it's still the same people. Yeah.
We have some video that you took in some tickets from the 1970s. I think these are awesome, because you get these flimsy paper receipts now, but you've got these tickets.
These are much more of a work of art. So you got individual tickets, and as you can see, they were crafted nicely.
Yeah.
And the two-win thing, that thing there that you see in the picture, is actually from the window. Now the windows, when you go to the windows, you go to the win window. You couldn't bet show there or place. You had to go to a win window, a place window, or a show window to place your bets. And these things that they would slide in there. And you couldn't cash bets at the same windows either. You had to go to a certain window to cash your bets. So it was really kind of neat. And then you'd be up all night studying. And you'd get there to the track. You got to make the double. There were only 9 races. You didn't have exotic bets. So as a kid, and you had $20 in your pocket, we couldn't go in the clubhouse. We'd go in the grandstand because it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Although we'd stand near the clubhouse, so we'd feel good about it. But
what can we learn from this from today? You know, as you said, we've got these big programs now. We've got all these exotic bets. A lot of people throw a lot of money down. And I'll be honest, I've done it, and I don't really know what I'm doing.
Well,
so what can we learn
it used to
from
be
the
pretty pure then, because you were really trying to pick winners.
Yeah.
Now you're picking the first, second, third, fourth horses, and you got all these exotic bets. So I think what you learned is that sometimes when I'm not doing so well gambling, I'll go back and say, look, let me just pick winners and pick straight winners and bet them flat and try and get ahead that way, as opposed to betting an exacta, triple, superfecta, daily double, pick 3, pick 6 in all the different races. So it was much more pure. You really had to focus.
Well, it also seems like you were there more for the enjoyment of the race as well.
Well, as a kid, I mean, the thoroughbreds are just magnificent, and we just loved being around them. There were no fences. We could walk anywhere. Where they saddled the horses, there was no fence around that. You just walked right around under the elms there. It was just terrific.
Yeah.
So, yes, things have changed, but Saratoga still it still drips with that aura of the old-time feel. So.
Well, it's great to hear these old stories of how it was, because, the more we look back to our past, the better our future is going to be.
Sure, I hope so.
Barry Potoker, our local Saratoga native. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next Friday. Now, to see Barry's segment for a second time, head to our home on the web. It's looktvonline.com.